When I talk to business owners in White Center, Vashon Island, across downtown Seattle, everywhere throughout District 8, people say the number one thing that I want as a business owner is more places for our employees to live.
This is Hourglass, the podcast for United Way of King County in Seattle. Coming up, a conversation with Teresa Mosqueda, the current King County and former City of Seattle council member who, like United Way, spends her time addressing issues such as housing and food insecurity and access to resources. We will also spotlight United Way's new Our Neighbor Fund and hear about a local volunteer opportunity. I'm your host, Joe Burris. Thanks for tuning in. Years ago, Patty Mosqueda and Dr. Larry Mosqueda of Olympia made sure their daughters Teresa and Tanya understood the importance of justice and equity. While residing in Washington State's capital, Larry, the college professor, and Patty, who worked on higher education policy, would take the girls to protest over wars and rallies that called out injustice. The Mosquedas encouraged Teresa and Tanya to not only question the status quo, but to recognize their privilege in any role they might play in perpetuating injustice. Teresa Mosqueda is now a King County Council member and a former City of Seattle Council member. She speaks vividly about those times with her parents and how they shaped her views about activism, justice, and fairness. Larry and Patty lit a fire within their daughter that now cannot be extinguished. Mosqueda has become one of the area's most passionate and committed leaders for those who have not always benefited from our region's economic windfalls. Mosqueda has dedicated her tenure in office to promoting healthy communities, amplifying the voices and addressing the needs of working families, and creating more affordable housing for all county residents. If you're one of the thousands to benefit from United Way of King County's free tax preparation program, give a big thanks to Mosqueda. A portion of the funds to run the program come from the City of Seattle, and during her tenure on the council, Mosqueda ensured that the funding remained intact. She also helped double Seattle's investments in affordable housing, improved protections for domestic and hotel workers, and supported small business opportunities, especially for women and people of color. On County Council, Mosqueda represents District 8, a region that includes West Seattle, Vashon Island, Burien, Tukwila, and unincorporated King County. During her stint in office, Mosqueda has joined county officials and community members in breaking ground on the new White Center Community Hub. The hub will provide affordable housing and community gathering spaces. She is a member of the county's Health and Human Services Committee that has taken up the implementation plan for crisis care centers. Mosqueda has also fielded calls from community leaders asking for additional help to address the needs of asylum seekers residing at Riverton Park United Methodist Church in Tukwila. Her work around the issue began when she served on Seattle City Council. After visiting the church in October, Mosqueda successfully petitioned the council to allocate $200,000 toward providing families with temporary housing during winter. Since then, county and state lawmakers have added millions of dollars to the effort. United Way of King County partners with Riverton Park United Methodist Church to keep residents housed through rental assistance. Our work aligns with Mosqueda's efforts at a time when the county, if not our country, has grown more polarized in our responses to the housing crisis. And our work comes at a time when, according to Habitat for Humanity's 2023 State of the Nation's Housing Report, the U.S. is undergoing record housing unaffordability, record housing shortages, and surging home ownership costs that have priced out 2.4 million people in 2022 alone. The number of cost-burdened renters has reached an all-time high of 49%. Also, the Center for Health Journalism says that up to 47% of families experiencing homelessness say they have been evicted. Many jurisdictions across the country either have no temporary homeless shelters or their facilities often have no vacancies. And last week, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that cities can ban people from sleeping and camping in public places, overturning lower court rulings that deemed it cruel and unusual to punish people for sleeping outside if they have nowhere else to go. United Way of King County believes that the key to addressing homelessness is to prevent it from happening in the first place. We and our partners not only provide rental assistance for those facing eviction, but legal resources as well. Like Mosqueda, we believe that housing insecurity and other issues are solvable only if private, public, and philanthropic sectors work together to find and execute common solutions. United Way recently sat down with Mosqueda to talk about housing, our free tax prep, health and safety, and a host of other issues keeping her busy while in office. Here's what she had to say.
I think that the opportunity to serve the residents, the diverse residents of King County, especially in District 8, is the privilege of a lifetime. The first Latina to ever serve in this position and also to ever serve the county. When we have a county population that's half people of color, it's a quarter immigrants and refugees. It is exciting to see greater representative democracy coming into action in this position. But it's not just about representative democracy on the outside. It's about really representing working families and fighting for a more equitable and just economy and opportunity for all. And where I got here is actually through health policy. My background is in health policy, focusing on work at CMAR Community Health Centers, Department of Health, Community Health Network of Washington, Children's Alliance. And it actually led me to a career fighting for things beyond that plastic medical insurance card that you put in your pocket. When we think about what makes us healthy, actually health insurance is about 5 to 10% of what makes us healthy. And the rest of what makes us healthy is access to good living wage jobs, stress-free environments, toxin-free environments, the ability to have a house, access to good food. And that is why I went from working on health policy specifically to working at the Washington State Labor Council, where we fought for things like living wage jobs and the ability to take time off when you're sick, lifting up the wages for all workers. I did that work and wanted to continue those sort of macro social determinant of health policies, and went from the State Labor Council, AFL-CIO, to run for city council. And then after 6 years there, privileged to have earned this spot at King County Council. Again, as we look at the diversity of this county and see more and more working families being pushed into further regions away from the city's downtown core and into our county, it's important to bring those core principles of fighting for working families and a more just and equitable economy into our work at the county. And that's why I'm here, for health and equity. It's also been interesting to serve now as a district representative instead of just citywide. It has been my commitment to be in district, whether it's on Vashon Island, White Center, Burien, parts of Tukwila, downtown Seattle, even Capitol Hill, Soto, Georgetown, West Seattle, to be out in community, really hearing from folks what they'd like to see from their county representative. And to me, that's been a whole new breath of fresh air to hear those district level desires and to be able to put those into action as well.
No, it's interesting because in United Way, there are two issues that we hear really dominant. If you look at the calls that we get for request of services and attention that we get, it's housing and food insecurity.
It's housing and food, absolutely. And the interesting part about the housing issue is that this also crosses the working family needs and the employer needs. When I talk to business owners in White Center, Vashon Island, across downtown Seattle, everywhere throughout District 8, people say the number one thing that I want as a business owner is more places for our employees to live. So, in fact, in West Seattle, where I live, I was talking to a business owner one day on a tour I was doing with the West Seattle Chamber of Commerce. And this was, an opportunity to hear directly from small businesses what they'd like. And I said, if I had a magic wand, what could I do for you today that would help? And his answer was, you see that empty parking lot across the street? We need childcare and we need housing in that spot so that workers who work for me don't have to worry about commuting home an hour or two a day, worried whether they're going to make it home in time to pick up their kiddo. Everyone would have a higher quality of life and it would be better for his employees and patrons, if people could walk to places of employment and enjoyment. And so that's really what I'm committed to: increasing housing stock, using density options, allowing for more livable, walkable, and green neighborhoods that supports small businesses, and it supports our environment as well as working families.
Now, you were on council, I imagine, when the Homelessness Authority, the Regional Homelessness Authority was started. And there is this sense that a regional approach is the most viable approach, but the whole region has to buy in for that to happen.
That's right.
Okay. How do you make that sellable?
Right.
Particularly to your district?
Well, I was on the Seattle City Council when the King County Regional Homelessness Authority was created. It is largely a vision that we all bought into, especially seeing places up and down the West Coast struggling with the increasing number of folks who are living houseless. We saw the area of Los Angeles City and Los Angeles County create a similar regional homelessness authority. The difference between what we created here in our community and what's been created in other jurisdictions is lack of funding. When we created the Homelessness Authority here in King County, we did not give the authority the ability to raise revenue. It does not have a reliable revenue source. And for lack of having its own dedicated revenue source, which I think it needs, would love to work with the state legislature to ensure that there's a reliable revenue source. But for lack of that revenue source, what you see is uneven distribution of funds from local jurisdictions to the King County Regional Homelessness Authority. In its initial years, King County made up just around half of the contributions to the King County Regional Homelessness Authority, and the City of Seattle made up more than half of the contributions to King County Regional Homelessness Authority. That's because Seattle had more resources. It has more taxing authority that it's put into place, and it's not fair, really, to compare other jurisdictions of smaller size to places like Seattle or even King County that don't have those type of resources at hand. We all need the services that King County Regional Homelessness Authority hopes to provide: emergency shelter, permanent supportive options to get people into long-term housing, the outreach network in order to create trusted relationships to move people from outside indoors, and health services, counseling services, and connection services. All of those are critically important. But what we really lack right now is a statewide solution for providing funding to King County Regional Homelessness Authority, or a King County funding option. And I say that with the hope to ensure that there's stable resources so that we can create stability for this sector who is providing care for our most vulnerable. That's my hope. And I know that it's one of the bigger issues that we have to tackle in this region.
And you were a strong supporter of United Way of King County's free tax prep program. You know, I remember, I think, interviewing you at one of the West Seattle branches. Where I mean, just talk about why that program, or just really programs that help people get back some of that hard-earned revenue of their own, is so important.
Our tax system is so cumbersome in this country. What we need for working families of, frankly, all income levels, all languages, all abilities, is the ability to help walk through the tax filing process. What United Way of King County offers is the ability to have someone sit down with you and hold your hand through that process. I want to thank you, United Way of King County. You are offering support in person. And that is sometimes what is needed for folks when it comes to financial decisions or issues that affect money. They need someone to sit down and talk to. It is stressful for many of us to think about finances and money, and to have someone walk us through this process is so incredibly important, especially when people might come to filing taxes with a significant amount of fear. They don't want to do something wrong. And sometimes for fear of doing something wrong, people might not do something at all. That gets people in more trouble later. So what United Way is able to offer with the free tax filing options is really the ability to help people make sure that they're getting what they put into this country. Often people file taxes and get a return at the end of the year. And also the security, the the ability to take a deep breath and know that someone was sitting by their side as they filled out their tax materials. The free tax prep program was one of the items that was actually initially cut in some of the proposed budgets that we received over the last few years in Seattle. And not only did we restore it the first year, but then again last year when it was potentially slated for elimination. It is a small amount relative, about $100,000 that we put in each year, and makes an incredibly huge difference in our community, helping bring dollars back to working families. That is funding that, if coming back to working families in the form of a tax return, goes directly back into local economies, again supporting small businesses and keeping our local economy and engine running. Lastly, I would say one of the most beneficial things I've been able to celebrate with you all is not only free tax prep program, but helping people understand that they were eligible for the working families tax credit. I mean, a working families tax credit is I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it. If you are barely surviving on the margins, worried about putting food on the table, keeping a roof over your head, knowing that you were able to get up to $1,200 in cash back for the Working Families Tax Program, that is going to help sustain families, feed kiddos, clothe families, and really care for our most vulnerable. So it's a double benefit to have Working Families Tax Program eligibility, thanks to our state partners and you all for your advocacy at United Way, not only direct service, but also advocacy and the work you do on a direct service level with the free tax program. And very excited that, as IRS catches up with online tools, there's now filing options that you're also helping people file direct options with the IRS so that we don't have more cumbersome processes that we have to wade through. You help people on all levels. So thank you for your advocacy and your direct service.
But Mosqueda says that during her 6 months on the county council, the number one concern she's heard from District 8 residents has been about public health policy and public health clinics.
This is actually why I wanted to come to King County, because of the purview that the county has over public health. So to me, to be able to be in this position in partnership with the executive, community partners, labor representatives, working to find solutions to keep our public health clinics open, that has been one of the biggest priorities that I have been working on. And I'm excited that we now have a solution that's in the hopper, thanks to Executive Constantine and the work that his team is doing. We now see light at the end of the tunnel to keep our public health clinics open and to keep those public health servants employed. It is critical not only for the health of those who go to public health clinics to have those services be maintained, but actually the health of our entire community. Our entire county is reliant on everybody being able to access healthcare services when they need it. So I'm feeling excited about being here in the moments where we're putting together the pieces, the puzzle pieces of how we maintain our clinic infrastructure, protect our public health workers, and think about how we maintain a robust delivery system going forward.
Mosqueda considers herself a dedicated advocate that brings people together to find common ground for improving our communities. Reminiscent of folks that inspired her back in the day at protests and rallies, she says she will never give up fighting for economic justice and our basic human rights.
I have just one more question for you. We talked about the challenges. Okay, what gives you hope?
Well, what gives me hope on a daily basis is my kiddo. She's 4.5. And, when I have a tough day and I go home and, sometimes it takes a little while to shake what happened in the day. And she just comes up with the funniest jokes or says the cutest thing and just shows us the opportunity for the next generation. I am inspired by her. That is what gets me grounded and also gives me motivation. What gives me a little bit of hope is seeing the changes actually affecting policy from the local to the state level right now. We have one of the most diverse state legislators that we've had in throughout Washington's history, and people are pushing for progressive revenue, for revenue options, environmental justice, housing density. These are things that give me hope, and so my hope is that at the county, I can help take the reins again and build off of some of those ideas and really create a more inclusive, affordable, and representative King County.
Teresa Mosqueda, King County Council, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, and thanks to everyone who makes United Way possible.
United Way of King County recently launched the Our Neighbor Fund, a $12.5 million campaign to invest in strategies that keep families fed and housed and help college students stay in school. Our Neighbor Fund will enable us to provide students with free meals when school is out, leverage millions of dollars in rental assistance funding, provide students with emergency grants and housing assistance, and much more. Please help join the movement to make a difference in the lives of our neighbors. To give, log on to uwkc.org/donate. Looking for a volunteer opportunity? Asian Counseling and Referral Services seeks support for its food bank. Asian Counseling and Referral Services says that it operates the sole food bank in Seattle that consistently caters to Asian American and Pacific Islander diets, providing healthy and nutritious staples like rice, tofu, soy milk, noodles, canned proteins, and produce. The food bank operates out of the organization's Chinatown location, and volunteers help prep grocery bags for delivery, assemble and package food items, load and unload deliveries, and help keep the facility clean. For more information, log on to acrs.org/volunteer. At United Way of King County, we are working side by side with communities to build an equitable future for everyone. Hourglass United Way is a podcast that highlights how we and our partners spend time making a difference in our communities. Our work is made possible by the generous donations from people like you. Please send comments and suggestions about our podcast to hourglassunitedway@gmail.com. To learn more about our work or to support United Way, log on to uwkc.org. I'm your host, Joe Burris. Thanks for listening. Until next time.